hundreds of millions of dollars during that period. They lined up the state to be the best managed state in the country. And on top of that, he set up the state to be the most business-friendly state, and that designation really has been followed by every governor since, and it's a designation that the state still has today. As the 31st Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, he led a team of 110,000 people. He stabilized the food chain supply during COVID. He started the Farmers to Families Food Box program. One day I was in Washington, and I asked him, I said, well, have you set up a program like the Commission for New Georgia within the Department of Agriculture? He just smiled and he said, you know, things are a little different up here. But then he went on to say that he'd set up dashboards for accountability for departments and for the folks working there. And then he went on and talked about his goals to make the department the most efficient, the most effective, and customer-friendly department. Now think about that for a second. To make a federal bureaucracy customer-friendly is a huge challenge. But talking to him, I knew that those goals were being met and being really worked on while he was in Washington. He comes to us today as the Chancellor of the University System of Georgia, with over 360,000 students, 26 colleges and universities. One of them is our own Chris Blake's University here. And he has said that this job that he has now is probably the most impactful job that he's ever had. You think about 360,000 students, that's a very dynamic number, because every year tens of thousands graduate and more students come into the system, and it's been a growing system for years. And as those individuals get a quality education and start their careers and their families and start contributing to their communities, their families, of the state, and it makes a tremendous impact on the state. And this gentleman will have that impact for many, many years in the future. I've known Sonny for years. He's a man of vision. He's a man of integrity, and one of the finest leaders that I've ever known. And it's a pleasure to introduce the Macon Rotary Clubs today, Sonny Perdue, Chancellor of the University System of Georgia.
Thank you, Bob. That was a wonderful introduction. My wife would have, appreciated it. My mother would have believed it. So, anyway, good to be with you, Danny. I'm glad you explained. This is the fanciest Rotary Club I've ever been to. Beautiful flowers here and a great meal, and many good friends out here in the audience. It's obvious, though, we don't have many Baptist members. I'm a Baptist, I can say this. They don't get out when it rains. They're afraid they'll get sprinkled. Anyway, it's good to see all of you today, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk a little bit about my current role and life in general in that way. Bob is correct. I have been quoted as saying, in fact, it's on my LinkedIn profile. Actually, when I came back from D.C., Bob, I thought I was done, headed for a country road and a tin roof, and really retired from public service. But when the Regents asked me to do this job, I signed in when I came back from LinkedIn. I said, born a dirt farmer, tried a couple other jobs, but never could escape. That was after coming back from D.C., thinking I was done. And I figured the Regents now might want something a little more erudite than that. As Chancellor of the University System, so I changed my profile to Chancellor of the University System of Georgia, possibly the most impactful job I've ever had. Think about that. I believe that. I wrote that because I think it's true. When you have an opportunity to create an ecosystem for the state of Georgia, for 364, 5,000 people, students there, who can enjoy a life-changing experience there, that spells impact to me. And that's really what we do. I want to talk to you a little bit about the university system here. Most of you are familiar with it, but you may not be. I want to tell a little bit about that, why it's important, why I think it's impactful, but also important for the state. I've said before that I believe, and I actually said this really in my second year in the state senate. I came in when Governor Miller was elected, Pierre Howard was elected lieutenant governor, and Pierre told me after the second term, when I was elected for the second term, he said, "Sonny, we've had some turnover. I'd like to give you a committee chair, but don't get excited. It's not going to be a big one, but what would you like to do?" I said, "Lieutenant Governor, I think probably that in light of your optimism about what kind of committee I could do, I believe I can have more impact in the Committee on Higher Education than any others." I believe that then, I believe it now, and so he allowed me to chair Higher Education Committee. And that has turned into, I think, a lifelong love of watching people change their lives through education. My mother taught school for English for 42 years. I tell people I still get PTSD with dangling heart symbols. So she made sure, that was back when you diagram sentences, and you had grammar and spelling and those kind of things in English class. But nonetheless, it's been a great experience. So this is an awesome job, and really the Chancellor is appointed by the Board of Regents, of which Alan Goodcraft was one, and the Governor appoints 19 members of the Board of Regents, 14 from our congressional districts, and then 5 at large. Then they choose a Chancellor to be the administrative head or lead of the Board of the University System of Georgia in that way. So we get to do the administrative work, bring data and facts to the Board of Regents, and they make a policy for the board, for the system, and we implement that. So it's been a good relationship. We've got a great board, and I appreciate Alan's service on that board as well. This is 26 institutions, over 45,000 staff and faculty, interestingly, many of which don't really consider themselves employees. That's a joke. You know what I mean? You can tell the academics, right, Alan? And Chris Blake deals with them all the time, so he knows exactly what I'm talking about in that way. But nonetheless, it's an inspiring way to literally have the opportunity to impact that. I've said for years, though, after my service as chairman of I believe that as the university system of Georgia goes, the state goes just a generation later. I really mean that. I believe that it is a virtuous cycle, is what I call it. It's kind of like a flywheel. In life-changing experiences, the more we educate people, the better informed we make people, the better critical thinkers we can educate, then they can make the best democratic decisions going forward for the state in the future. I think we're benefiting from that right now. As you remember, Zell Miller, in my first term there in the General Assembly, initiated and brought me the Hope Scholarship. It was a huge input of, we were losing many of the best and brightest of our Georgia students to other places outside those states. They were going away from Georgia. The Hope Scholarship acted like a huge magnet that brought them to stay here in Georgia, and then additionally brought additional students of the best and brightest from other states to come here. And Chris will tell you, it also brought a renowned faculty that wanted to come to this growing, ascending system that was benefited in the state involvement and the state investment, both of the governors and the General Assembly during that period of time, has continued its reputation. We are, I believe, if not the best, one of the very best systems in the country. The governance model allows us to do that. This common board of 19 represents all 26 institutions. And you don't get into the food fights that you get in some states over some trustees being for one institution versus the other in that way. So it makes a great benefit. Alan had to to think about the whole state. While he knew Middle Georgia State here, and he looked after them, he also knew that he had all 25 others there that he had to care for as well, and making decisions and policies that would benefit all of those. So that works better. Why do we think it's the best? Because the focus is on students. You mentioned, Rob, our customers. Those are our primary customers. And we want them to feel like when they leave our institutions, they're ready for the world, ready for a career, ready for a job. In fact, our challenge, as Chris will tell you, our presence to get what I believe to be the #1 degree. You may have never heard of it, but I call it the FIO degree. And they looked at me like, what is FIO? I said, well, it's what I want every student in our university system to understand and be able to do when they leave and get that diploma and go into the workplace. They said, well, what is it? I said, it's figure it out. That's what business people tell me they want. That they want students who can come to their offices and their business places of business and not be told exactly what they do. Have critical thinking, conflict resolution, team building, understanding reasons about that, and innovation about how to do things better. They want young people and older people as well to figure it out, how they can create an atmosphere of innovation and creativity. You all know that the world's moving very quickly right now, and changes are there. We're educating students today for jobs that we don't even know what they will be in 5 or 10 years. If you look at the markets today, don't look at the markets today. If you were, last week if you looked at the markets, you would say that many of these companies there, in fact, I saw that OpenAI had a larger capitalization there than Chevron and McDonald's. Think about that. OpenAI had a larger capital risk than those two long-standing companies in that way. So that's how quickly things are moving. Many of the top companies today weren't even around 10 or 15 years ago. So we've got to, Chris and his colleagues, other 25 colleagues, are moving very fast in the flexibility of educating these students in a broad base, both STEM and humanities and all kinds of education with a core thinking that we want young people who can think on their feet, who can innovate, who can create, who can solve problems. People tell us they want problem solvers in your businesses, in your company, in your organizations. You want problem solvers. You don't want young people bringing problems. You want them resolving problems in that way. Things that you may never have thought of in a generational way. They can bring things that they do that. So we're focused on student success. We're focused on their prosperity and how we can help them be the better. And speaking of being better, our mantra, Bob, we talked a little bit about some of our things with the Commission on New Georgia and the USDA. The USDA, our motto was pretty simple. It was just do right and feed everyone. And you think about that, it's profound, short but profound. And do right is a lot of things in that way. In the border regions, Alan will tell you that we had a mantra that says really about doing better. Good, better, best. Never let it rest till our good is better and our better is best. We want to be known as the undisputed best university system in the country that way. I think if you observed this last spring or what was happening across academia, particularly in the Northeast, I think you ought to be proud of the way Georgia colleges and universities behave, how their presence managed the campuses that way, and responded in a way that helped them qualify for an educational experience for which they paid, not to be disrupted by encampments and other things, barring classes or taking over buildings and those kind of things. So I'm very proud of those. These presidents have a tough job, but they managed it very, very well, and we're proud. We actually saw that come to bearing with our applications this past fall. Record applications for our colleges right here in the state of Georgia, many of them of which from out of state. And I know Ellen and some of our regents have some thoughts about the responsibility of educating out-of-state students. I think while the state has been very good at investing in that, tuition is is trouble for out-of-state students. I like to look at them like many economic development prospects. We pay sometimes resources to bring jobs to Georgia. I think if we take these best and brightest, smartest kids from out of state, they come and be educated here in Georgia. We invest in them. They're more likely to find a spouse and to stay here, create jobs, and be an economic development prospect of one. So we're proud of the relationship that we have with our in-state and out-of-state students there in the mix that we have in our colleges and universities. So one of our, I think again, I'm proud of Middle Georgia as being one of the most affordable. That's one of the pillars of our regents and our policies there. We want to be affordable. We know that college costs have gone up significantly that way. But I'm going to point out some things that may not really ring true with you, but it's factual. We had had a special institution fee that was removed in the first year that I was Chancellor. The legislature and the governor removed that special institution fee that our students were paying, which literally made the tuition and fees they're paying in 24, 25 less than they were in 2017. Not many people know that. And we say the cost of college is higher. But the university system, we've been focused on that. We've had tuition increased only in 3 of the last 9 years. Inflation has far outpaced our costs going to school. In the university system, much of the cost, obviously room and board, has obviously inflated with everything else, but the tuition is a real bargain. We are probably 6th lowest as a system in the United States and 3rd lowest here in the SRAB region, the southeastern region here. And we want to keep it that way. We want it to be a value. And we do believe it's a value because if you look at the facts, I know there's been a lot of conversation in the national press over the last few years about the value of 4-year education. Many people think we don't need it. Let me just give you the census facts about what difference it makes. Over a career earning, take 2 students, Ryan, two students here. By the way, I need to talk to you about, we got 26 good institutions here. But of a career earning, those young people that get a 4-year degree over a career earning will earn $1.4 million more than a high school diploma. That's pretty significant. But it has delayed gratification because kids coming out of school today looking at $20 or $25 an hour job, never had a lot of money, they say, wow, I'm going to go to work, stay there. What happens in 5 years? They're really bright. The manager comes and says, we got a managerial opening we'd like to put you in. Let me give me your resume. And he said, well, you're doing a great job. You didn't go to school. This job requires a 4-year degree. Well, no, I didn't. And they're topped out that way. The good news is they can do both these days. With all the online opportunities, they can get that $20, $25 an hour job. They get it as a beginner, and then still go to school and work toward that degree to get that long-term career earnings as well. So we're trying to focus on that as well. Bob, you mentioned the commission. You also mentioned the USDA dashboards, and that's one of the things we do. I'm a big believer in if you got to measure things. Accountability is accountability in that way. So you have to measure things, and we created dashboards there in the metrics that we want to measure of success. Obviously, we were coming out of COVID, enrollment has been down, we've been really pressing all of our institutions over recruiting and getting our students into there. And now that we've got our enrollment back to 364,000. Kids to graduate. That's why we're focusing now over retention and progression and graduation, because that's what really matters. If you look at a resume and says I attended such and such, it doesn't say I graduated. A few Georgia Tech people, it says I got out. Y'all never said you graduated. I got out and such and such time, but that's what really matters, and that's what we're focused on now. That's what our president's, we're focusing on retention and progression and graduation. There's a lot of wraparound services to do that, to make sure that we are trying to intervene at a timely place in that student's life to make a difference. So that's true. And those are all good things. We got really proud of Middle Georgia being one of the most affordable places we got in our university system here, and really in college in general. Chris, we appreciate you and your staff and all of your crew there that worked on that, and we want to thank you for that. Then you might think from all that advertisement we don't have any challenges. We do. And as you might imagine, there's just a little bit of chaos going on in Washington. So that wasn't a joke. Certainly with the education department now, we've gotten some notices over some research being reduced. I wouldn't say cut out, but the indirect cost recovery that we were able to recover from the federal government on some of these research grants has been reduced. We're going to be fine. We're going to make it. We were talking earlier, though, about we don't want to make sure that the federal government doesn't take all the money and keep it up there. If they want the states to do it, then they got to make sure that they either don't take it or it comes back rather than being laundered in D.C. for other purposes. And we're perfectly willing to have that responsibility. I'm kind of a 10th Amendment guy that says really the states are responsible for this, and the federal government's responsible for defense and national security and those kind of things. So I'm happy to have that responsibility as long as the resources come unimpeded back to us in order to accomplish that job. So we want to acknowledge the fact that many people in the press really question the value of a higher education these days. I've given you what I think is the best product of that is really the earnings that can happen. So the other thing that I hope you're noticing right now, we're going to talk a little bit about it. Middle Georgia State, as well as all of our institutions, are much more nimble and responsive to the workplace than they ever have. Every president, every campus has a demonstrated responsibility to look in their local region. What are the workplace needs there? What's happening in that area? How can they meet those needs? One of the economic competitiveness is one of the strategic values that we hold there, that we want our campuses to look around and meet the needs of doing that. And I want to tell you that the Middle Georgia State has done exactly that. As Chris Blake has 5 campuses he has to oversee, and sometimes that's a challenge in this innovation corridor here, along with Robins Air Force Base, one of our largest employers, and the defense sector and all those kind of things. But I'm happy to report that this February, the Board of Regents approved USG's, our system's first Bachelor of Science in Applied Artificial Intelligence. Guess where that's going to be? At Middle Georgia State University. So, Chris, thank you for your vision in that way. And it's going to launch this fall, and applied AI is a practical use of artificial intelligence. Many people thought we ought to fear it because kids would use it to write papers. We want young people who can use it to get the most out of it, how they can use it in their careers to get the most out of it. And we got to train those, or somebody's going to be training them. But it's the practical use of artificial intelligence technologies to address real world issues. It focuses on developing and using AI tools to improve industries such as healthcare, business, cybersecurity, and many, many more, as you know. So these students at Middle Georgia are going to learn to develop ways to apply AI, how to do the queries to make them even smarter and more efficient in that way. So it's designed strategically to address Georgia's key economic sectors like aerospace, agriculture, logistics, and much more as they increase to use AI to optimize their operations. So we're happy about this and look forward to that. So our other institutions as well are responding to Georgia's needs, crucial needs, really like the ongoing nursing shortage. Middle Georgia State contributes that way by producing highly skilled, competent nurses as well. I think Chris, if you were speaking today, you would tell them that your program has exceeded, your graduates have exceeded the state and national pass rates for the National Council Licensure Examiner, the NCLEX is what it's called that way. And they've also just launched a partnership with the technical college system in expanding opportunities in Georgia's growing tech sector, fueling that Middle Georgia's innovation corridor as it continues to build. This is providing a seamless transfer for our students pursuing careers in information technology, because the jobs, as we said earlier, that we don't even know exist yet, we want to prepare students to be able to compete in those. So what does that mean for all over University System of Georgia? Our institutions, including the one right here, have a renewed focus on aligning our degrees with the economy. Again, think of that flywheel. When I was governor, companies would come and think about locating to Georgia. Their first question was, what kind of tax incentives are you going to give us to come to bring jobs to Georgia? Now today, do you know what they want to ask? What's the first question they ask? Where are we going to get the talent to do that? Because in any of your organizations, what's the most important asset you have? People. And that's why it's a real grab for the best people to come out and the talent to run these organizations. And that's what we hopefully are preparing young people to do. So that's what it means. Requests for new degree programs are continuing. Must include now job postings, why are they needed, skills training, employment projections, and expected industry support about all those. We want to do meaningful, purposeful, focused type of academic programs that make a matter in our economy. So Chris will tell you, our institutions and our presidents understand they must listen with their ear to the ground to the local economy, what those job demands and labor demands are, and work with our local communities and our employers going forward to design the kind of program that they must have there. So all in all, I want to just thank both here, Middle Georgia State, President Blake, Emma, and the group there, for all the faculty and staff at the college, university here, that they've done. Just a couple of statistics. Middle Georgia State University has contributed more than $296 million to the economy in fiscal 2023, nearly 3% increase over the previous year. Due to the on-campus and off-campus spending during the same period, they accounted for more than 2,700 jobs here in the Middle Georgia area. They've made a significant number of workman partnerships that make it easier for adults seeking to advance their careers to gain more education. We talk about young people a lot of times, but I want to make sure you all know higher education is for everybody. We've got a lot of people out here that may have, for whatever reason, taken a year or two of college and never finished. We welcome those kind of people back into that. The opportunities with online learning and working together really are available out there if you want to pursue that. And again, Middle Georgia has got these relationships with companies like Atrium, Delta, and YKK. I didn't mention the fact that, speaking of Delta, Middle Georgia has really the only 4-year aviation program here in the state. It's well-renowned and well-respected by the Federal Aviation Administration. They have air traffic controllers and many other things. So it's a variety of career-feeling jobs that Middle Georgia has here, and we're really proud of the effort. We look forward to the continued growth that way. So you may look up at me and say, well, looking at me, you may not be able to tell, but this ain't your grandpa's university system. It's nimble, it's flexible, it's going forward to meet the needs of the current economy. It's moving ever faster all the time in that regard. So our presidents, our faculty, our staff are not only focused on academics, but on our industry needs and how we can be better partners with our workplace. Again, that flywheel, because if you push the talent brings the economic development brings a resource to create more talent, and we want to keep that moving well. As we remember all the while, and our presidents here, our students are our number one customers. That's who we're here for, and we appreciate the opportunity. I guarantee you we're focused on those customers day and night. So I appreciate you all today. I appreciate Danny the opportunity to come and speak, and I'd be happy if we have time They said y'all got out about 2:30, is that right? I'll be happy to answer any questions if you so choose. Thank you all very much. Ed, yes, sir. Well, our budget for the system as a whole, a little over 11 billion. Our budget from the state is a little over 3, almost 4. And then the gap between philanthropic and others, much of that is federal research and federal funds. Georgia Tech, for instance, does over $1 billion worth of research for the federal government. So you can see how impactful that is in that way. And I don't think this research is going to stop. I think they're looking for value as well. Let me tell you, as a citizen, we can't stand the $36 trillion debt for long. And so I'm, as a fiscal conservative, I'm all for the fact of looking for waste, fraud, and abuse. And I'm just hope to recognize the fact that while education is a responsibility of states, you can't starve them as that way as well. If the money goes to D.C., it's got to flow back, and so that we can do what we have responsibility to do.
The question is about student debt. I know you kept tuition low, but what other things are you doing about student debt?
We're a big believer in kids working and student jobs as well. We try to provide campus jobs as well. We're also with the foundation doing student needs scholarships. We're raising money at our University System Foundation, as really all of our campuses are, to help those students who really qualify and meet all the other criteria of really skin in the game, and they're doing all they can. And sometimes it's a little as much as $200 or $300 or something that stops a kid from finishing, a student, excuse me, Brian, I mean kid, student from finishing their education in that way. And we try to be sensitive to that by getting ahead of that and providing some student needs scholarship. As you know, the Hope Scholarship has been great in Georgia, but we don't have a state-sponsored student needs scholarship. I'm talking to the General Assembly and the governor about that, and hopefully we can very soon. But we're trying to raise that money philanthropically with foundations and others who believe in the higher education and how it changes lives. So we're doing our best to relieve that debt. I think the best thing we do, Bob, is trying to keep tuition and fees affordable as possible. Yes, sir. At the University of Georgia, the flagship, where it's difficult and admissions are tough, we have sort of an 80-20 mix there on admissions. Now, graduate may be a little higher out of state than that, but 80-20 there. Georgia Tech starts off with kind of about 60-40, but is open to transfers, which then gets them up closer in the 70s to in-state students. So it's not a matter, and we don't need our presidents just looking at it from a tuition standpoint, because the state provides over 60% of the funds to run our university. While you may get 3 times the tuition from our out-of-state students, we are a state university funded primarily by our state government and state legislature, and we got to focus on our public responsibility to educate those students in Georgia, all those who want an education that way. Obviously, admissions are tough. University of Georgia and Georgia Tech just released their admissions for this coming fall a few weeks ago, and there's some sad stories out there. Some very qualified students that were not admitted, that I fear that they may go somewhere else. Like, what'd you do a while ago, that thing? They may get They may go to evil places like that, and or other places outside the state, and then do the same thing I was telling about earlier, find a spouse and not come back. These are qualified students, and we're trying to grow that, but it's a race for sure, and to do that, but that's kind of the ratio. Danny, I think we're done here, friend, but I appreciate it very much, and thank you all very much for allowing me to come today.
Thank you. Are we still going? Senator, Governor, Secretary, and Chancellor. I'm going to get there. Thank you for your service to Georgia, for your service to the United States of America and to the world. You have made a difference. So he said, Sonny. So as I think about that, and I was sitting there thinking about so many things going through my mind, like, do we still have social promotion? I was in one of the institutions, the 26th. That was a 2-year at the time. And after 4 years, they gave me a promotion from English 101 to English 102. And so I got to English 102, and the lady, I thought she was probably 100, and she might have been 60, but she called me in that she was head of the department, and she said, Dan, I love to hear you read in class. I love to read your essays. But how in the world did you get through English 101? I wished my mother was an English teacher at the time. But anyway, what the main thing I wanted to say was, though, you remember back in the 60s, or you read about the 60s, everybody was walking into beauty parlors, all the women, and I think beauty parlors is okay in the 60s. And every woman in America, not every, but a bunch of them wanted a haircut like Jackie Kennedy. Well, I was in South Georgia a few months ago, and I went into a barber shop. And I said, do you know who Sonny Perdue is? And they go, yeah, I've heard of him. I said, do you remember what he looks like? I can't remember. This was just a small town barber. I said, well, pull him up. He's on that little computer that's in your hand. And they pulled him up. I said, Sonny Perdue. Spelled it for him, pulled him up. I said, give me a haircut just like that. Look at this job. They did good. It is so good to have you with us, and we thank you really sincerely for everything that you have done for humanity. I want to thank all of our guests. Thank you for being here. It is such a pleasure to look out and see this room so full. We invite guests to come back and be with us anytime. And Ryan, I'm with him. Bunch of good institutions right here now. My daughter went to Tulane. My son went to the University of Georgia. I'm very thankful for keeping those tuition prices low. Thank you. I'm going to ask all of us to stand, and I'm going to ask all the Rotarians to join me as we close our meeting by reciting the Rotarians' four-way pledge of the things I think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? We are adjourned.